Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and this is the LinkedIn Live program for technical sales professionals and technical sales leaders. And folks, I like to remind everyone, these are live conversations. This wasn't recorded last week. Here it is, mid-October. The leaves are falling. Football season is in full swing. And as I like to say, these conversations are by design, unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. In today's conversation, we're talking about influence without authority. And as it turns out, we actually have an authority on influence without authority with us today. His name is Marc Lamson. He is the president of ASLAN Sales Training. Now, some of you may be familiar with my affiliation with ASLAN. I've been working with ASLAN for about 6 years, and I was a customer of theirs before then. Marc is someone that I have gotten to know reasonably well. He's someone I consider a mentor, a friend. And if I may, folks, the work that I've done with Marc and ASLAN and what I've learned from them has had a big role in my success running this business. So it is an absolute pleasure to welcome Marc here to the show. Marc, thank you so much for being here, sir. How are you doing?
I am doing phenomenal, except as you mentioned, it is mid-October, which means in the Northeast, if you're a boater and you like the water, your days are numbered. So it's a beautiful time of year, but I'm great. I'm excited to join. Thanks for having me.
Well, and you know, I'm a boater as well, and a few hours south of you. And I think, and you know, one of my things is wake surfing. I think I may have wake surfed for the last time this weekend. So that is a sad thing. Marc, I introduced you as the president of ASLAN Sales Training. Do you mind taking a minute and just introducing yourself a little bit broader, maybe share a little bit of your background and what is your experience in sales? What is your experience in technical sales?
Sure. To all those who are joining, I guess an initially apology. I grew up in Jersey. I'm an only child. So I put those two things on the table right there as a disclaimer.
Sure, why not?
So that gives me like a little bit of hope. Please give me your grace. My motive is to serve. My motive is to help, but I have those two things, and I'm just going to do the best I can. I grew up in Jersey. That's where I got my love for the water, and I went to school to get an electrical engineering degree because that's a good precursor to sales training. And ended up working for a technology firm. I worked for mobile for a while. It wasn't my deal. Ended up for a technology firm doing critical power and cooling, APC, now Schneider Electric, and started on the phones doing tech support, doing battery backup troubleshooting, and
Wow.
kind of moved around the sales organization. So have experience in some technical sides, ended up in a sales role, worked with a lot of pre-sales engineers, post-sales engineers, and all the technical horsepower there. Ended up leading some salespeople, hired ASLAN in 2003. So I too,
Wow.
Chris, am one of the many former ASLAN clients that are hooked up to this ship. And I left 3 years later to pursue my passion, training, coaching others. Been here ever since. And we just have had a great, I've been here 20 years helping clients do the things we're going to talk about, which is sell, serve, connect, influence, be other-centered at work, be other-centered at home. That's what ASLAN's all about. So thrilled to get a chance to share some of those things.
Fabulous. But by the way, Cliff Barcliff in Richmond, Virginia says hello. Cliff has been on the show and he is a frequent attendee, if I can use that term. Cliff, it's good to see you. Folks, we do not see you out there. So if you do care to say hello, please feel free to do so. Of course, if you have any questions for Marc or myself, we welcome you to ask as well. Marc, I'm going to double click on a word that you used a couple of times because I want to connect the dot here. That word is serve. You mentioned serve a couple times. Before we even get started and talk about influence, what does the word serve and influence, what do they have in common, or in what way are they related?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of this goes back to what I hope many of our parents taught us, which is it's better to give than to receive. Um, uh, our mantra, I guess, is being other-centered. We teach other-centered. A lot of this, I think, in your advertisement was, this is about other-centered selling, and other-centered is great, and selling kind of sucks, and it sort of loses interest to people. So we can replace that word, but that's what it is, and that's what that's what Chat GPT is looking for when people are searching for sales training. So, but it's really about making a decision to help other people get what they want and what they need ahead of yours, and trust that actually makes you more effective in your role. And when I say role, I mean sellers, pre-sales engineers, leaders, moms, dads, brothers, sisters. All these roles are you're more effective when you actually serve other people. And number two, which we don't talk about, but people that really care about, is you're more fulfilled. You're more fulfilled.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, and when I think of the word serve, and then I think of the word influence, sometimes they almost seem in conflict or opposed to one another. Well, how can I both influence someone and serve them at the same time? But I think it's because people maybe misunderstand influence and confuse influence with control. Let's talk about that for just a minute.
Well, let's take, you and I are of a similar generation age-wise, and so you can call in your experience, maybe some of your friends or some stories where, how do I say this? Our parents start to misbehave as they get older. They don't do what we want them to do. They don't do what they should do. And so we're finding ourselves trying to influence them. To put you on the spot, like, do you find that happening in your life or any friends, like where trying to get your parents to do things, but they won't, but when they do, they're glad they did?
I texted you earlier and said that I was running a little bit tight today, partially because I was dealing something related to my mom, who's in an independent living facility. So yes, indeed. In fact, I would say my biggest sales job in the past, couple of years have been trying to convince my mom of certain things. So yes, indeed.
And can I jump ahead though? See, this is the difference of influence, control. I'll put the word manipulation in there. See, at the end, right, that there's a beginning and end. At the beginning, it's what's your motive? What's your motive with your mom? And I know you, and I've come to know you over 6 years, and I too have enjoyed working with you. You've made me better. You've made ASLAN better. And I'm going to trust that your motive with your mom is probably something all about helping her, sometimes at your expense or whatever it might be. Yes.
Yeah. My expense, my effort, my imposition.
Yeah, all those things. The strain on your wife, the strain on your family. And despite the raw materials that your parents were given 50 some years ago, look how you've turned out, and look what they've done,
as I like to say.
And you're appreciative, right? So your motive is pure. So now influence is about help leading her to what's best for her. What's best for her, even though, could I please, she's kind of become a stubborn old woman who doesn't want to listen to her son, right? I mean,
right.
And so that's hard. That's hard. And then so on the other side, though, if there's a little truth into the conversation, your mom says, "Oh God, thank you so much, Chris. I'm so glad I did this." Or my father-in-law, he was a boat guy, but it was always like an effort. Hey, let's go out in the boat and let's go. Oh, it's too windy. I don't have this. I don't have. It's just everything's an effort. It's what happens. And by the way, we're going to be in this. Let's not let each other do that. My wife and I are keeping a list of what we're not going to do or say when we get old. And so now that we're not old, relatively, we're making that list, right? I'm going to try to pull it out.
We have the same list, but
yeah. It's hard.
I'm if I had to place a bet, I'd probably be betting against myself, not on myself.
Right. So, but see, he didn't want to go, and I would say, let's go. And when we would influence him, and when we do it, he says, "Thank you so much. I really enjoyed myself." That's influence versus control, We really can't control people. We can make short-term things happen, but that hurts long-term relationships. What I would guard against is when we talk about things or ways to talk or a lot of training or things that we're taught or techniques, things to say, and manipulation is influence over people that where your motive is not about helping them, and that's the difference.
Yeah. One of our colleagues, Tom Stanfill, who's also been on this show, by the way, it's been a few years. He has been quoted countless times as saying, control is an illusion. And I absolutely love that idea. Incidentally, Cliff mentioned, and this is precisely what we're talking about, Mark. If you come across as someone who truly wants the best for your customer, you will have the most influence on any deal. Incredibly well said. And Mark, so anybody listening to this so far doesn't think that the purpose of this was to talk about how to manage aging parents and how we should try to avoid becoming aging parents. Let's talk about the people that the technical sellers, pre-sales engineers, solution engineers, whatever we want to call them, typically tend to influence. Let's start with sales professionals. I can't have a conversation with a sales engineer, team, group, or leader without hearing complaints about their sales counterparts. So let's talk about what are some very specific things that sales engineers can do to have greater influence with their sales counterparts.
It's a great question, right? And again, this is about influence and serving, because my take on that sales engineer, pre-sales professional, salesperson, account manager, account executive is I'm just going to say the word SE. That's the word that I use. Can I just use that word with affection? I know that's probably not politically correct. It's outdated. Something's wrong with that, but that's what's in my 54-year-old brain. But, SEs are given, like, this is how I see it. You're given like 50% of the customer story. You're very little prep. Hey, we got a demo. We got to bring it. We got to have a conference call. We got to have this person on. You get on the call. They might talk about what you're going to do, but probably don't. The salesperson makes way too long of an intro, and then your half an hour got shrunk down to 23 minutes, and someone's got a hard stop. Show them everything, avoid all the landmines of your solution. And when you do that, if you lose the deal, it's your fault. But if you win, the salesperson gets the praise about, well, they were the quarterback and they brought you in at the right time, and God forbid you finish a meeting and, like, you set a little debrief later, says, hey, let's talk about how it went. How did you do? How did I do? What can we do better? And get feedback over time. Like, I kind of think about it as that's what happens. Yes, no, is that what happens? Kind of, sort of.
I mean, I'd say it's pretty accurate. And here's the I think one of the challenges and one of the mistakes a lot of SEs make is I think they have a hard time finding their voice. They're afraid to come across as difficult to work with. They're afraid that they're going to look as though they're not being team players. So they tend, particularly new people who are newer to this profession, they tend not to speak up and stand their ground. So how can people who maybe find themselves in that situation, how can they learn to speak their piece or stand their ground if they disagree with the approach?
So let's put I think this is the first 5-syllable word we'll introduce into the conversation. We'll talk about the word receptivity. Receptivity. That's 5. Perfect.
There you go.
Standing your ground, your voice, influencing your sales, the salesperson you work with, it's back to the control is an illusion. It's back to influence. Our business is about elevating your relationship with people, trusted partners, with customers, with your team, with others. And so even though, you're a piece of the team of your salesperson can kind of bring you in, or however that works. Again, I'm oversimplifying the relationship, but it's about elevating your relationship with them, and other-centered selling is about shifting your focus from influencing, persuading, standing your ground, giving feedback, trying to change people. And it's getting to shifting from getting them to be open and to be willing to be influenced. That's really what has to happen. Right? They're not willing to think about it. Hey, can I give you some feedback? I mean, sure, there's 10% of salespeople that'll say, yeah, sure, love your feedback, and they'll take it. But for the most part, the reason it's difficult, the reason we're skeptical of doing it is because we know, like, we're just going into the headwind and they don't want to hear it, and they're like, yeah, I'm good. And we don't, I just, they're unreceptive. And here's a principle. Here's the receptivity principle. When someone's unreceptive, when someone's closed, they're emotionally closed to influence, feedback, they're just emotionally closed. The more we try to persuade and make a logical argument, and unfortunately, SEs are good at logical arguments, right? We're full of that.
It's where we live. I
Yep.
mean, that's our space.
Full of that. It's like, how can you be so effing dumb to not understand this logic? We've had these, like this, it just doesn't exist. And so the more we do that, the more closed people become. And people are thinking about emotionally closed, this word receptivity. You know, someone's unreceptive, you can't influence them until you make them receptive. People are like, oh, what's unreceptive? Everyone on this call either has had teenagers or was a teenager. Go down the hallway. My 15-year-old, give him life advice. So, Luke, give you some life advice about school, sports, dating. I mean, what's he say? Great, Dad. I so appreciate that. Let me get out my notes and take advantage of your life advice. No. Closes his arms, grunts, a couple other bottling noises, and like, I'm good, man. And that's it. Yeah. And the more that I lean in and put in my frame and say, well, the more I try to persuade, the more it shuts down. So that's step number one to influencing without authority, is recognize that if someone's emotionally closed or unreceptive, your focus has to shift from selling and persuading to creating receptivity. Yes, no, does that make sense? Too heavy?
It makes perfect sense to me. And as you were sharing, I was thinking back to so many times where I got this wrong, particularly when I was in the field. And like you said, someone would bring me into an opportunity or say, well, this is what we're going to do, or this is the approach. And I would just instantly dig in, like, that makes zero sense. We have no business even talking to them, right? And to your point, the more I just made my logical argument, the angrier they got at me, and the more they dug into their position.
Yeah.
So you said we need to shift our focus from basically making our argument and selling our position to creating receptivity. So how do we do this? I mean, it makes sense, but how do we do it?
$1 million question. Yeah. And I think for purposes of this conversation, I've kind of, I think there's 3 parts. I think this is a 3-part puzzle, and in no particular order. And I'll try to kind of maybe just lay them out there, the problem and how to do that. The number one is make sure that the other person understands that they're the priority. We talk about a principle, we talk about some corollaries. There's a default principle, or the default corollary. I guess the corollary is like, this is what makes the receptivity principle true, or this is what follows, is that people are closed if they think that you're the priority, right? So let's go to sales. That's easy. That's easy. When you talk to a salesperson, whether you're a customer or whether you're, when someone's talking to someone who's trying to sell them something, the customer instantly thinks, who is the priority in that conversation?
The seller, of course.
I have a commission. I got a quota. I got to go. And unfortunately, you're locked in with the salesperson. When you stand in front of an audience and start to give, a demo or technical advice, or start to have a conversation for your solution, you're locked into the same bucket. You're both trying to sell me something. And so when I don't think someone has my best interest at heart, I'm skeptical. And so, and by the way, unfortunately, the world is just full of selfish people who have their own agenda and their own priority, and it's just all over the place. So the deal is, how do you establish, how do you communicate to someone that you're my priority over my own commission? And by the way, saying you're my priority doesn't work.
Amen. Yeah.
Right.
In fact, that almost does the opposite.
It
right?
does. Trust me.
Kind of like the moment I say this to people, the moment you say no pressure, what have you just done? Introduce pressure. It works the opposite. Well, and
there's no pressure, but see, that's a word here. This is your freebie for the side. When you say the word but, everything you said before is complete BS. That's what that means. That's what that word means. You want to be more influential tomorrow or this afternoon? Just eliminate the word but. Just pause. Say something, pause, say something else. It's incredible. Difficult, but incredible. Anyway, I interrupted you.
That one thing alone may be worth the price of admission on this one.
How much does it cost? What is the price of admission to this?
Well, I think it's just the price of the LinkedIn, whatever your LinkedIn monthly subscription is.
I'd say that's true. I'd say if it's free LinkedIn, I would say that would be worth it. I would say that would be. There you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go, Cliff. You got yourself.
So something came to. There were actually a couple of things that came to mind as you were sharing. One in particular was to translate what you're saying into a real situation for an SE. When your account executive or your sales counterpart brings you, say, a request for a demo or a request for involvement in an opportunity, and it just doesn't make sense. Well, what are they trying to do? Well, I'm not really sure. We just got to, we just got a chance to get in there and show them something. So let's just get in there and show them something, right? I think if we can learn to say things like, look, at the end of the day, my number one goal is to support you and help the team hit the number. And I take that very seriously. Now, by just saying that, I'm communicating you're the priority and this is a priority for me, right? That being said, I want to make sure that we're always putting our best foot forward for your benefit and for my benefit. My concern is if we don't have answers to these questions, I'm not sure that getting in there just to do a demo is the best thing we can do right now, right? Is this kind of what you're talking about, Mark? Is communicating in such a way? In other words, why is it in their best interest, not just my best interest?
Yeah, I think that's definitely along those lines of, how we get aligned on goals. And I think, it's a balance of time and energy, and we're aligned on kind of similar mutual goals. I think that the thing I would offer as kind of our pro tip, right? If we're taking this. I mean, look, the audience here, you have what I want to say, successful, advanced. These are sophisticated people that have come to follow you.
If they've ever read a book, they might be highly successful or highly effective sales engineers.
Might be, yeah. They could be very highly effective. Here's the word I'll give you about priority. Here's one word about unique. Unique is priority. In other words, priority means it happens in our lives all the time. And priority means like you treat me a little better or a little different. I have the inside track. We go to all of you that's listening can think about your favorite restaurant, cafe, coffee shop, something that you go to, not because it's the best food or it's the cheapest or it's the closest, but somebody there makes you feel something. They remember what you drink, or they remember something about your life. And so we think about it like this, to put this on a napkin, because the goal here is I'm really trying to say, hey, there's a couple of things to put on a napkin as you're listening to this over lunch or whatever, over your coffee, that you can go turn into some kind of application. And the way that you communicate priority, remember, how is this connected? If someone thinks that they're the priority, they start to become more open. And the way that you really communicate priority is the things that you just said in goals. The real way to do that is serve them at their deepest level, which is what we call unstated emotional needs. It's I want to be your favorite sales guy. I want you to give a little extra effort to me. I want the best. And the way that you do that is you do something to demonstrate the unique value of them, that what's unique. And this, again, we say serve more. That's what we say. We say serve more. Care, learn, do. That's your verbs. Care is, see, as this other centered stuff comes again, care is you actually have to decide to care. I can't teach that. There's no book. There's no nothing. You actually decide. You actually have to decide to care about the other person. You actually have to say, this damn salesperson who's 20 years my junior, who doesn't know squat, who's been screwing up stuff and sticking it to me, and is under a ton of quota pressure and hasn't had enough information to really be successful, and they're starting a family, and on and on. You have to make that decision. There is no skill set or training required to decide that. And I wrote this down as I was thinking about this for this show specifically. You said, this show is unpredictable. Here's something you might not predict. Here's a way to remind yourself of that. Go to a funeral. I know you've been to one recently with a mutual friend.
I have indeed. Indeed.
And I'm not saying create funerals. I'm saying when they're around, go and listen, right? Nobody talks about your quota or how great you ran the company and shareholder value and EBITDA and blah, 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 blah. People talk about how you cared, how you impacted others. And I'm not preparing you for your eulogy. I'm just saying one of the things in society is people don't give a shit about other people. I'm not sure if I can say that on this show or not.
I think you just did. It's okay.
They're just so wound up in their own lives, and and we think that we're so busy. When you talk to another human being, decide that person has problems. If you can set yours aside and let them go and just push it off and worry about them. See, now you can learn and you can listen. So when someone actually says their name, you remember, or someone tells you where their kid's going to school, you remember. You don't have to be smart. People in your family give you great gifts. They're no smarter than you. They just are actually paying attention and listening when you talk about what you do or don't like. So when you go to your salesperson and you're working with them and you talk, whatever it is, what stage in their life they are, their family, their car, what their hobbies are, what their teams are. If you live in the DC area and you're a Ravens fan, have a little extra sympathy right now, because this is live and we are proving that this is mid-October with the record of 1-5. And so, have a little more sympathy for Ravens fans. But I laugh, but it's true. These things are small, not big. You don't have to send them a bottle of the best bourbon. It's small things that you're paying attention, that you care. If you care, learn, do these small things of just what you say, the person on the other end knows that you actually are they are actually the priority. They are actually your priority. And then when you say, hey, salesperson, hey, Chris, I have some ideas that I think will make it better on our next sales call, they know that it's because that the salesperson is the priority versus themselves. And that's how that happens. And that's a decision. That's a decision.
Love that. It's interesting, Mark, as you were sharing, another thought came to mind. And I think it's a real illustration of what you're saying. And that is, in a number of different contexts of life, whether it's here at home with my wife, whether it's dealing with prospects and customers or colleagues, I realize that sometimes when somebody asks me a question, and I think we all experience it, somebody asks us a question, and sometimes we're inclined to say, well, why are you asking? Because if it's for my benefit, then I'm eager to share. But if it's just for your benefit, or so you can, quote, use it against me in some way, now I'm not so sure. I think that's what we're talking about here, right? Is what's your motive? What's your motive? What's your motive? And as we like to say, and we do some similar work, obviously, motive is transparent. People can usually see through to the real motive. And that's where, as you said, it really becomes a decision.
100%. Yeah. The serve more is care, learn, do. If you care, you're going to pay attention to pick up what's unique so you can do something small and what you communicate or what you share or say. But the starting point is the decision. And if you just decide that that's really your motive, Everything else is secondary. It's
Yeah.
just, but you can't fake it. Like you can't
Yep.
fake
Yep.
motive.
Well, and
So
here's the interesting thing. And Mark, I want to pause just a moment and recognize a few comments. Here's the interesting thing is that, and it's sort of a, as I like to say, kind of a bummer dude. And what's a bummer dude? You're walking down the street, you bump into a friend, like, hey man, how you doing? Like, oh, I just wrecked my car. And like, bummer dude. Well, here's a bummer dude. We will never get this 100% right. We just won't. Like, you won't, I won't, none of us will ever bat 1,000 on these things. But if our motive is in the right place, it's okay that we're not going to get this right 100% of the time. If our heart's in the right place. I'm going to hit pause just for a moment because I think maybe someone that you may know, Nick Heffernan. I don't know if you know Nick.
I do know Nick.
So he chimed in and said hello. Cliff has made a couple of comments. He mentioned, he used the word emotional intelligence. I think he said that's your jersey expressing yourself. That may have been the four letter. And Cliff also said empathy. Yes, we're definitely talking about empathy. Mark, there's one other thought that I had before we go. You said there were 3 things, and I think we've only covered the first, and I want to make sure we get to the other 2. But the only other thing that came to mind that I wanted to get your reflection on is I've come to believe that when groups, when teams, when individuals are looking for a solution, and in our space, that typically means a software solution for some specific purpose. I've come to believe that they tend to go with the group or the team or the vendor that they think understands them the best and demonstrates that they, whether their solution is the absolute best or not, but if as a buyer, if I feel like you understand me and you've demonstrated that you understand me better than anybody else, I have greater confidence that you can help me because you understand me. And I think this is part of what we're talking about. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, it's really part of priority, and you're really kind of setting up the next thing. To use we're talking about, talking to your seller, but you don't really have authority with your customers either. And so when you talk to them, it's that unique, that serve more still applies. I can think of we had a prospect we were calling on, and they then this is probably like 15 years ago, before what do I say? It seems like a lot of people have different ways we spell words. We put words together. We don't capitalize them. But like maybe 15 years ago, that was less hip and cool. And they used all small letters. The first letter of their company was a small letter. And when I sent an email, or when I did a presentation, or I wrote the word, I always put it in small letters. And by the way, that's effort, because as you know, when you start a sentence, right, it's a capital, and you have to go back and I have to do some backspaces. That's the care. Like I care because I learned they have a small b. I'm not really sure why, but that's not important. Like, it's obvious that they want it that way, and so I make it a small b. And the CEO of the company said to me in the presentation, he says, "I noticed that you have a small b." He says, "Thank you for noticing. Nobody does that. Are you interested? Why?" I said, I am. And I said, but I didn't want to interrupt our conversation. No, I just knew it was important to you, so therefore it was important to me. And he went on to a big story about it's a hospitality brand around relaxation, and that a capital B is too bold, and it's soft, and our culture is soft, and it starts soft, and all these kind of things, right? There's a whole thing into this. So again, how much, and we want a deal. And to your point, it's like, did we win because it was a small B? I mean, no, there was probably more than that. But when you say as an SE, based on your situation, I think this is the best solution, because they go back to the small b, and they know that they're talking to someone who's decided to care, is paying attention, and is really doing what's best for them. You're more believable, you're more trustworthy, and they're the priority.
And here's the truth. We know that people make purchase decisions. Frankly, people make all decisions emotionally and justify with logic. And so the small B, the example of the small B, began an emotional decision that they went and probably out of their way to justify.
I mean, I'll be a customer for 3 seconds. You want to not connect with me? Number one, my name is Mark with a C. And if you're talking to me, unless you call me on the phone, I mean, if you're writing it, you've seen my name in writing. It's on LinkedIn. It's my email. How do you write me an email back with my name spelled with a K? I can't believe that. Two is back to words. We capitalize ASLAN. Why? Because in certain fonts, ASLAN looks like Asian. And that's and that's fine, but that's a very different thing. When we didn't do that, we used to have people call us and looking for training and translation services. It's not what we do.
Interesting.
So right or wrong, it's ASLAN.
By the way, I've been affiliated with ASLAN for 8-ish years. I don't think I've ever heard that story, or if I did, I've forgotten it. So
it was back to like the dot matrix phones that had a little LCD like printout, and when you saw it on the phone, it would say Asian training, and people would answer and they get all confused. Anyway, that's another story. Here's the point. Decide to care. Set your motive, and that will and let them know I see what's unique about you. When I say unique, it's about something about what you do or what you did last week or where you went. It's actually just give a damn. It's just give a damn.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's interesting. There's a gentleman whom I've also had on this show, and he wrote a book called "Most People Don't." And it's literally just, I think it's a series of 1-page descriptions of things that most people don't, but you should. And this falls into that category for me. All right. Mark, I do want to make sure we get through the 3 of the things that you mentioned. And I do have a harder stop than I do other times. So we talked about priority, the fact that it's a decision. What is the second of the 3 things that you were mentioning?
Just alluded to it. People want to know that you get them. And so let's back up to this idea of receptivity. Let's get back up to the idea of talking to influence without authority, right? Influence, goes back to this can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink kind of thing. It's about our focus on getting people receptive and open. And I'll share kind of concept or principle corollary number 2, which is, we call it the polar principle as a way to remember it. It's nobody wants to understand. No one wants to hear your perspective until you understand theirs. No one wants to hear your perspective until you understand theirs and you validate theirs. And the polar principle is we typically draw this like globe, and you're up on the North Pole and someone in the South Pole. When you look up, you see the sun, they see the moon. I don't know, might not be right. Maybe it's tilted at an angle, whatever. Smarter people in this call than me. But the point is, our perspectives are both right to us, but they're polar opposites. And sometimes when you're talking to your salesperson, it's a polar opposite opinion, perspective on what to do for the next customer, or what we should do for the last customer, or how we should work together. Most people don't. Love that book. Most people don't take the time to understand and validate the other person's perspective. When we see a different opinion, we start pulling up our flip chart, our little pocket slide deck with the logical argument about why I'm right. It's ridiculous. And all the other person is doing is what?
They're digging in.
They're listening for how they're going to shoot your reasons apart. And by the way, I am talking about salespeople. I would never be talking about, a dinner conversation with your spouse or anything like that. I mean, such a thing would never happen.
No chance.
No, I just that would never happen. See, and so here's what, a lot of this comes to a decision. We're afraid, we sell sales training, and people say, I don't think an investment would make sense for us right now. Every bone in my body is afraid. It's like, I can't say that. I can't agree with that. I'm not agreeing. I just say, look, at the end of the day, right, I can't prioritize. It sounds like you have a lot of things going on. There's a million investments, sales training, one of those options. and you're not really sure if that falls in the top half of the list. Is that where you are? Like, say it. Say it. If you say what people are thinking, they know, to your point 5 minutes ago, you get them. And that's what most people don't do, is they don't communicate to the other person they're trying to influence. Influence is positive. Influence is about helping them navigate all the options and helping them land on what's best for them. Influence starts with an invitation to influence. And the way that you make that happen is you ask questions so that you can say, so, salesperson, let me understand if I see where you're coming from. You're behind in quota. You don't have time. Like, whatever it is, you just say it back to them, even if it doesn't bode well for your opinion. Just say it back to them and mean it. It takes all the pressure off discovery. We have discovery meetings with customers, and a lot of times we're all worried about, like, my goal when I talk to somebody is just be able to say back, let me see if I understood what you said.
Love that.
Let me see if I understood what you said. I've been, I have enough knowledge about what we do and sell that'll come, but I don't care about that. I care about my son. One of the most influential meetings of my career, my son came and says, I don't want to go to college. Now, 4-year college is not for everybody. There's a million ways to make money. But at the end of the day, let's just pretend that as a mom and dad, we know that that was best for him. He said, I want to take a gap year is what he said. We know that's best for him. And if he did that, let's just say as 50-some-year-olds, we know what's better. And so, yeah, to your point, Chris, I make mistakes. He said that. Jersey came out. I yelled and screamed. This is why you're going to do that with my damn bike. You're going to get your ass out there and get a job. And I gave him the 38 reasons why he shouldn't do that. And what did he do? Walk away, yell and scream. I don't like you, and all these other things. Took a breath, went back and said, hey, Lee, would you be open to a conversation? And just, I want to know really all the things. You're a smart guy. I want to know all the reasons why you're thinking. And he talked for a long time. And I went back and said, so this is what you're thinking. And I fed back to him, embracing, validating the 5 or 6 reasons he wanted to take a gap year. You don't want it. You're afraid of failure. You don't want to go away and come back with your tail between your legs. You're tired of school. You want to take a break. You don't want to leave your friends, and you admit you're homesick. All these things. And I said all these things to him as if I was saying, these are the reasons you want to take a gap year, and those are valid. I get that. I completely agree with that. And I stopped talking. And you know what he said? He said, yeah, he says, but you've been to college. He says, like, you have a career. And he says, what do you think I should do, Dad? That is what we mean by earning an invitation to influence. So take the pressure off yourself and the questions, and they say something which says, I don't think we should have an SE at all. Like just whatever they say, it's their perspective. It's their reality. You've asked for it. Our biggest problem is we respond too fast. Take it in, tuck it away, and feed it back to them. That validates their perspective, and watch what happens.
So powerful. And I think this is one of the hardest things, maybe as a human, but certainly as a sales engineer. We hear something that we vehemently disagree with, whether it's dealing with our sales counterparts or dealing with a customer. And we immediately want to go to court. We immediately want to start our argument, right? In fact, I think you said there's like every fiber in my body wants to tell you what you're wrong, right? But the moment we do that, to use a word that you used earlier, we destroy receptivity and the chances that they'll even be remotely open to another idea. And yeah, this is a really hard thing to do, to say.
It is.
Okay, I'm a little surprised to hear you say that, whatever it is that they've said, but because, a lot of the folks that we work with who are in a similar role think very differently. But could I trouble you to just help us understand why is it that you think you don't have to worry about securing the edge, or why is it that you don't have to worry about data in flight, or whatever it happens to be, right? I think this is what you're talking about. Yeah.
People want to be heard. People want to be heard, understood, and validated. We call it take the trip. That's really your good goal here. Your job is to take the trip. If you're at the North Pole and they're at the South, go down and see their opposite, different. And it's not always opposite. It's just different, right? But see the perspective, feed it back to them, validate it. It's with anyone with influence. Internally, it happens with me. I want to be heard. Work on our leadership team. We have meetings. I start giving an idea. Someone like Tom says, "No, we're not going to do that." I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Time out. Now, he may be right, and he may have the answer, and he is the CEO and the co-founder of our company. But I say, I want to be heard. I'll say that. I want to be heard. And he'll say, all right, and he'll catch himself. And we all try to be other-centered, and we're all not, because it's hard. And he goes through, and then he validates, says, this is what you're saying, right? This is where we are, and that's what you're, yes. All the pressure. Now, if you still make the same decision, that's fine, but I'm heard. And so take the trip with another person you want to influence, your salesperson, the customer. You should start your meetings with, hey, this is what I understand. Is that right? Can you fill in the, oh yeah, you get it. You get it, Chris. You understand where we are. Or no, let me say these one or two things more. Now I got it. Now I know that I'm your priority, and I know that you validated my perspective and you get me. And now I'm going to listen to your demo a little bit more intently.
Yeah. Yeah. But by the way, Cliff chimed in with something that I thought was really good, Mark. He said Big Dipper or Southern Cross, both overhead in the sky, similarly recognizable. But I love this last sentence. Know what your customer sees when they look at their own problem. That's really well said, Cliff. Thank you for sharing. That's really, really well said. Mark, unfortunately, we've got to land this plane.
You don't need to apologize. This is the easy one. Easy and quick. Okay.
What's number 3?
You use this word. I think it's in your agenda. It's pressure. So even if I feel like I'm the priority, and even if you validate my perspective, you put pressure on me, I'll shut down. You tell me what to do. To put a label on this, we call it the tug of war principle. Tug of war principle is I give you a rope and I pull. What do, Chris?
I'm instantly pulling back.
Yeah, the tug of war principle. And you're never going to win a tug of war with someone you're trying to influence.
Ooh, that's good.
But see, how do we apply pressure? Oh, is there any SEs in the SaaS world? Is that a role that exists?
I would say at least half of
software just sells itself. Software just sells itself. When we come in all the things, what you can and can't do, you can't downgrade. You have to renew. I don't have to do a damn thing. I could just ignore the whole thing. You can send me bills and we can go to court. Like, in other words, and people are laughing, but it's like yes, there are a lot of contracts and how the system works and what they've signed up for. But when you tell people they're forced into a jam, they resist, period. When people feel like their freedom to choose is not respected, they resist. They resist and they fight back. And so the only way to get out of a tug of war, Chris, is
drop the rope.
And it just means this. Drop the rope is 2 things, and this is it. Drop the rope is number 1. There's your mindset. It's recognize that they have options. And a lot of those options have nothing to do with you or your solution. Your salesperson can take your advice, not take your advice, complain to management, ask for a new SE, quit, go somewhere else. There's a million options. Recognize that there's options, and some of those options might be better than the option you're suggesting. It's just true. That's it.
Now, what I call a bummer, dude.
Now, tactically, right? Tactically, how does that sound? What do you say? You don't say no pressure. Amen. Right? You say, here's an easy one. Just say, would you be open? That's all. Would you be open to a conversation? Hey, salesperson, I've been selling, enjoyed selling with you. Here's something unique about you. I want to understand a little bit more about how you're thinking and feeling. Would you be open to a conversation? Would you be open to my idea? Just so would you be open? Because if someone says, no, I wouldn't be open, like you have a, first of all, you're getting ready to waste your breath. And second, you have a bigger problem. Would you be open? Watch their body language change. I asked that of my son. Would you be open to some ideas? 2 is it's permission to ask questions, permission to make a recommendation. And the third part is communicating it's their decision. Look, I didn't hire a company that we had a technology firm. I didn't hire them and said, hey, we have a lot of options. Where do you think your solution fits on my priority list? They said, number 1. And I said, you don't even know what else is on my priority list. So it's about saying only you can decide. Only you can decide if you want to do this. I can't. Now there's consequences, right? I mean, and you don't need to say that, right? It's my last personal story is my son was 6. We're in the kitchen, we're eating dinner. We get down to the point where he's eating his green beans. He doesn't want to eat his green beans. Those stink. They're no good. He's playing around. He finally says, "Dad, do I have to eat my beans?" Influence. Here we are. Do I have to eat my beans? If I was in Jersey, I would say, "Damn right, you're going to eat those beans," or, and what's going to happen? He's going to play around and scoop some out for the cat and mix them into his mashed potatoes and play, and just, it's a disaster. If I want to have influence, I say, "No." He's like, "I have the best dad in the world. That's awesome. I don't have to eat my beans." And I said, "Do you know?" See, now it's his decision. "Do you know why I want you to eat your beans?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How come?" "Healthy, make me stronger, give me energy, play with my friends, not be sick." Perfect. I can't make you eat your beans, but if you ate a few, all those things will happen. What do you think you should do? He's like, "I'll have a few beans." That's influence. That's dropping the rope. That's trusting that your decision to serve, your motive is transparent, that their perspective is what's important, even if it's different than yours, and ultimately taking the pressure out without saying no pressure, but communicating and reminding them of their freedom to choose. That's our best chance to influence people, influence without authority, and be fulfilled as an other-centered seller, influencer, server, pre-sales engineer.
Such a powerful message. I'm reminded of a guest that I had on this very show. In fact, a gentleman who Scott, Cassie, and I went to high school with, who's now a sales leader, I think, in the insurance industry. And we were talking about something similar. And he shared this saying with me, which I thought was so powerful. He said, "Chris, I just have this mindset. The recommendation is mine. The decision is yours." Is so powerful, so powerful. Marc, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm sad that we have to wrap it up. I feel like you and I could have gone for another hour. Any closing words as we wrap things up?
No, I would say a lot of this is about a mindset shift, and it's about a little faith and trust that, deciding to serve them, listening to things that are opposite of what you think, and really reminding them, look, maybe this isn't the best option for you. I don't know. That those things, if you have a good solution, you have a good recommendation, you're making a good suggestion to your salesperson about how we should work together, all those things actually make you more influential, make you more effective, and ultimately more fulfilled. And that's what a lot of us are seeking, is fulfillment and helping and serving people versus winning a deal that's short term.
Yeah. Well said. I hope you'll come back and do this again, Marc. This was too long in the making, and it was too much fun not to do again.
Sounds good.
Hang around backstage just for a minute so we can part ways properly. For those of you who hung around for the live session, thank you so much for being here. If you are listening to the recording and you've stuck around, thank you so much. If you care to follow these, you can follow Tech Sales Advice here on LinkedIn. And of course, you can go to techsalesmastery.com or ASLAN Sales Training to learn more. And I'm sure Marc would be happy to have you connect with him on LinkedIn. Folks, I will be back. I think I'm back next week with another show. Till then, all the best. Marc, thanks so much.
Thank you.